It wasn't a tabloid exaggeration, it was real. Behind the polished doors of Clarence House, Prince William stood toe-to-toe with Queen Camilla after she was caught in the most shocking royal misstep of the year, bullying Princess Anne. The room went silent. William didn't flinch. His words weren't shouted, but they landed like thunder. For years, the royal family's dysfunction simmered beneath the surface. But this was a boiling point. A prince defending his aunt, a queen exposed, and a power shift that just might change the monarchy forever. You won't believe what happened next behind those gilded walls. A royal insult that shook the palace. It began at a gala meant to be forgettable. On a crisp autumn evening in October 2025, Laura Lopes, daughter of Queen Camilla, attended a high society charity gala in Mayfair. Dressed in silver chiffon and seated beside a former ambassador's wife, she was overheard delivering what would become the spark for a royal wildfire. Turning to her table, wine in hand, she reportedly muttered, "Princess Anne is irrelevant and outdated." The comment, meant to stay within the confines of elite whispers, was picked up by 2 members of the British press and at least 1 senior aristocrat. Within 24 hours, the quote had leaked. The phrasing was exact. It appeared in a Sunday tabloid column, buried in paragraph 6, and exploded from there. Royal commentators seized on it. "This wasn't a gaffe," one said on a morning talk show. "This was institutional shade." What could have been dismissed as a careless comment morphed into a national debate. And for the monarchy, it quickly escalated from family feud to constitutional concern. Social media responded with war paint. "Stand with Anne" began trending in the UK within 3 hours of the leak. Memes popped up depicting Anne in armor and Laura holding a wine glass like a Molotov cocktail. The firm's oldest workhorse had just been mocked by a step-granddaughter with no title, no formal role, and apparently no filter. In the eyes of many, Laura had crossed a sacred line. She hadn't just insulted a royal, she had disrespected duty itself. Inside palace walls, the ripple turned into a wave. While the media churned, Clarence House issued no statement, no apology, no clarification. Silence stretched like a crack across marble. Aides began fielding calls from donors, diplomats, and military liaisons. "How did this happen?" they asked. The answer was devastating in its simplicity. Someone forgot the cardinal rule of the crown. Even whispers echo in palaces. As the headlines spun and hashtags multiplied, the palace waited to see how Princess Anne would respond. A storm had been thrown at her, but would she strike back? Would she even speak? As it turned out, her silence said more than any press release ever could. Princess Anne's silent strength. Princess. Anne did not respond, not with words. In the 7 days following the insult, Anne made 6 public appearances. She opened a rural hospital in Northumberland, inspected a new naval training facility in Portsmouth, and attended a service for fallen soldiers at St. Paul's Cathedral. At every event, she smiled, shook hands, and delivered speeches with her usual clipped precision. She was, by all accounts, entirely unfazed. But aides close to Anne confirmed. She had read the quote. She knew who said it. And yes, she was hurt. One assistant described her reaction as tight-jawed but controlled. In a rare moment of candor, Anne reportedly told a staff member, "I've outlasted worse than gossip." It wasn't dismissal. It was discipline. Public reaction was swift and overwhelmingly in Anne's favor. Polls conducted by YouGov showed her favorability rising from 72% to 84% within the week. Newspapers praised her stoic professionalism. Social media users called her the last real royal. A viral clip of her petting a retired military dog at an engagement drew 1.2 million views in 36 hours, a symbol of quiet endurance amid palace noise. Anne's refusal to respond had a secondary effect. It amplified Laura's misstep. The contrast between duty and pettiness became the central narrative. Where Anne showed grace, Laura vanished. Where Anne served, Laura fumbled. For the first time in years, public attention shifted away from William and Catherine and toward the woman known as the firm's engine room. Even within the palace, Anne's silent strength sent a signal. She would not escalate, she would not descend, but she would not forget. While Anne remained composed in public, not everyone inside the palace was willing to let it go. Prince William, ever the heir and now the enforcer of standards, decided silence was no longer enough. And when he moved, the entire institution shifted with him. William's bold rebuttal begins. Prince William's response came not through scandal, but through strategy. Just 5 days after the Laura Lopes remark leaked, William gave a speech at a Royal Navy ceremony in Plymouth. Midway through prepared remarks, he deviated from script. He spoke directly about Princess Anne, calling her a pillar of honor in service to this country and a model of what royalty is meant to be. The audience, naval officers, veterans, and Anne herself rose in applause. It was subtle, but it was war. Behind closed doors, he had already made his feelings clear. Sources confirmed that William privately confronted Camilla, requesting she address her daughter's behavior. The conversation, described as cold but civil, yielded no apology. Camilla reportedly dismissed the remark as misunderstood. William walked out of the meeting with no resolution and no intention of staying quiet. 2 days later, William skipped a Clarence House charity event. Laura Lopes was on the guest list. His absence was noted by the press, confirmed by aides, and interpreted for what it was: refusal to normalize disrespect. And more than that, refusal to shield Camilla from consequence. Palace insiders noted a shift. William had not just drawn a line, he had laid down a marker. He would not smile through scandal. He would not appease for optics. And the public noticed. One tabloid ran the headline, "William stands tall for Anne and the monarchy." Commentators praised him for defending the crown's moral compass, not its bloodline. His actions didn't just elevate Anne, they diminished Camilla's influence. It was a generational message. The era of glossing over family friction for the sake of tradition was over. William wasn't protecting the crown's image. He was redefining it. Tensions explode behind closed doors. While the public applauded Anne's composure and William's tribute, Clarence House was imploding. The air inside turned from stiff to glacial. What had started as a family spat had evolved into an institutional crisis, and no one knew how to put the crown back on straight. Staff began to refer to the internal atmosphere as high noon with silver cutlery. According to multiple insiders, interactions between households grew terse and territorial. Courtiers from Kensington Palace, now aligned with William and Catherine, stopped coordinating shared engagements with Clarence House unless absolutely necessary. Email chains shortened. Replies became delayed or non-existent. One longtime scheduler described it as communication trench warfare. At the center of the chill was Queen Camilla. Rather than issuing an apology or statement, she reportedly told aides that Laura's comment was being blown out of proportion, and insisted Anne had handled worse from the press for years. aides tried to mitigate the fallout, suggesting a private apology or even a short phone call. But Camilla dismissed such suggestions as groveling. She felt ambushed and unfairly blamed. Anne refused a meeting request from Camilla outright. A source close to Anne confirmed she wasn't in the mood for PR damage control disguised as reconciliation. From that point forward, the relationship between the two women devolved into total frost. Even their security teams reportedly adjusted routes at shared events to prevent unnecessary proximity. King Charles, caught in the middle, attempted what aides described as soft diplomacy. He met privately with Anne in Balmoral for what was hoped to be a healing session. Instead, it ended in silence. Anne left the estate earlier than scheduled. One staffer claimed William described the meeting as a waste of petrol and patience. Back at Clarence House, Camilla grew increasingly isolated. Her meetings became more defensive, her tone sharper. She reportedly confronted Charles about the lack of support, shouting, "If this were Catherine being attacked, you'd be issuing statements from the tower." Her frustration wasn't just about Laura's treatment, it was about losing control of the narrative. And Charles? He said nothing, at least not to the press, not to the cameras. But aides say he looked visibly worn, like a man trying to hold hands with two people on opposite ends of a cliff. As palace tensions simmered, a new storm gathered, this time around Laura herself. Once a background figure with a surname few associated with controversy, Laura Lopes had suddenly become a lightning rod for criticism. And the deeper people looked, the more they found. The unearned power of Laura Lopes. Laura Lopes had always lived on the fringe of royalty, close enough to benefit, far enough to avoid scrutiny. But once her insult toward Princess Anne exploded across headlines, people began asking an overdue question. Why is she here at all? Laura, though never granted a formal title, frequently appeared at high-profile events. From royal weddings to charity fundraisers, she was often spotted in the second row, beaming beside Camilla. Occasionally, even standing near working royals during public receptions. This visibility had gone largely unchallenged. Until now. Critics turned their attention to her past. Old quotes resurfaced, some dismissive of royal charity work, others making offhand remarks about Catherine, Princess of Wales. A now viral 2019 interview clip re-emerged in which Laura, speaking at a panel, scoffed at the performative pressure of being royal adjacent. One journalist noted, "She's happy to ride in the carriage, just not pull it." Online backlash exploded. A Change.org petition launched under the title "Keep Laura Lopes Out of State Events" gathered over 15,000 signatures in just 4 days. Comment sections overflowed with comparisons to Meghan Markle, not in race or rank, but in the double standard. "At least Meghan earned her visibility," one user posted. Laura just inherited it. Laura's defenders attempted to quell the fire, describing her as a private citizen with a complicated legacy. But that excuse was now falling flat. People were no longer willing to accept proximity to royalty as a substitute for purpose. "She's not a working royal," another post read, "but she acts like a courtesan with a VIP pass." Inside the palace, this growing resentment did not go unnoticed. Several mid-tier aides, particularly from the events planning office, reportedly voiced concerns about including Laura in future lineups. The phrase "brand liability" began appearing in internal memos. Eventually, palace leadership acted, not with public drama, but with quiet exclusion. Laura's name was removed from the guest list for 3 upcoming royal engagements, including a state dinner where her attendance had previously been assumed. No explanation was given. She was simply not invited, and that was the point. Laura had mistaken her access for entitlement. The palace, now under siege from all corners, wasn't about to let a non-working relative sink what was left of its credibility. While Laura disappeared from the stage, someone else stepped into the spotlight, not with speeches or scandal, but with loyalty and timing. Catherine, Princess of Wales, made no public statement. She didn't need to. Her next move said everything. Catherine's quiet but powerful loyalty. Catherine's superpower has always been subtlety. While others scramble for control, she waits, watches, then moves, once and with precision. In the wake of the scandal, with Clarence House floundering and William taking a visible stand, Catherine did what no one expected. She went to see Princess Anne, alone, quietly. No press, no security fanfare, just a black Range Rover pulling into Gatcombe Park on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Aides confirmed the visit was unannounced. It lasted nearly 2 hours. No photographers captured the moment. No statement followed. But palace sources later quoted Catherine saying, "Anne deserves better than this. It wasn't grand. It wasn't performative. It was exactly what was needed." Their bond wasn't built overnight. Anne had long respected Catherine for her work ethic, measured, consistent, dignified, and Catherine admired Anne for her unflinching loyalty to service. In that meeting, the two most respected women in the firm didn't make a plan. They made a pact to rise above the chaos. The impact was immediate, even if unspoken. William's stance no longer felt like a family feud. It felt like a royal flank, reinforced by principle. With Catherine's support behind Anne, the Wales-Anne alliance began to solidify as the palace's moral axis. And while Camilla wavered, Catherine's quiet resolve began drawing attention. Public perception followed. Online commentary labeled her the true royal partner. Polls taken days later showed Catherine's favorability at 78%, the highest among all royals. Her decision not to retaliate, just to stand beside Anne, was seen as emblematic of everything Camilla was not. Catherine didn't have to say Laura's name. She didn't have to post, tweet, or perform. She showed up, and in royal politics, that's how you win. Charles trapped between sister and queen. If there was one person who didn't choose a side, it was King Charles III, and that became the problem. As the scandal spiraled from headlines to household friction, Charles found himself standing between two women locked in silent warfare. On one side, his sister, Princess Anne, stoic, dutiful, the embodiment of royal service. On the other, his wife, Queen Camilla, who now saw herself and her daughter under siege. What started as an uncomfortable rift soon became an existential test of loyalty. Charles first attempted diplomacy at Birkhall, his Scottish retreat, where he invited Anne for a private lunch. Sources say the meeting lasted just over 45 minutes, with long pauses and short sentences. Anne reportedly told him, "I don't need an apology. I need standards." When Charles suggested a group reconciliation meeting, including Camilla, Anne left the room. She returned 10 minutes later, said nothing more, and departed the estate before dinner. Camilla, for her part, expected Charles to defend Laura publicly, but he didn't. His refusal to issue a joint statement infuriated her. One aide overheard her yelling, "Why does Catherine get to play queen while I'm left dodging knives from the press?" Charles reportedly replied, "Because Catherine doesn't start fires." The line, once leaked, was shared more than 80,000 times on social media in less than 24 hours. Clarence House staff began describing the king as fractured, pulled between past mistakes and present obligations. His approval rating dropped by 7 points in 1 week. Insiders said he looked exhausted during briefings, often skipping ceremonial planning sessions and spending more time at Highgrove than at Buckingham Palace. Even his allies began to notice. One senior courtier privately remarked, "His inability to choose has become a choice." The monarchy was no longer a ship, it was a lifeboat. And Charles was standing mid-deck, watching water rush in from both sides. By trying to avoid damage, Charles allowed the scandal to escalate, and in doing so, he lost the one thing every monarch must control: narrative. As Charles stalled and the family fractured, the public took a side. The media lit its torches, satire shows sharpened their scripts, and Clarence House found itself on the wrong end of a cultural firestorm. Camilla's team tried to contain it, but the backlash was already devouring the story. The media war engulfs the palace. What started as a leaked comment turned into a PR catastrophe. By the time the palace realized the scale of public fury, the media cycle had mutated beyond control. Camilla's image was in free fall, and so was Clarence House's authority. It began with headlines. The Daily Mail ran with "Queen's Daughter Sparks Royal Revolt." The Times followed. "A crown cracks. Laura's words shake the palace." Then came the global outlets, Le Monde, Die Welt, the New York Times, all publishing breakdowns of the family feud, complete with historical context and public polling. But it was the late-night shows that delivered the deepest cuts. BBC's Mock the Crown aired a brutal sketch featuring an actress playing Laura insulting cardboard cutouts of Anne, while Camilla fed her grapes. Saturday Night Live mocked the king as the most indecisive Charles since Darwin. By week's end, the monarchy was the punchline of a meme cycle seen by over 19 million viewers across platforms. Clarence House issued a statement calling the reports "regrettable misunderstandings." It was 42 words long, lacked an apology, and backfired immediately. Critics called it tone-deaf. Commentators labeled it damage control without the control. Online, it became a meme, the regrettable statement trademark. Behind the scenes, palace advisors launched daily crisis briefings. PR firms were pulled in. Dossiers were assembled to assess Camilla and Laura's public value versus liability. The verdict? Camilla's favorability had dipped 11 points. Laura's had tanked completely. She went from a benign unknown to a figure of inherited privilege and public contempt. In response, royal strategists began making quiet changes. Laura's social access was reduced. Her appearances were cut from upcoming press releases. Even Camilla's own engagements were reviewed, with several postponed or reassigned. One insider said, "It was like watching them pull the curtain back on their own queen." Meanwhile, the Wales household emerged untouched and unbothered. They made no statements, no rebuttals, just silent consistency, and the contrast became unbearable. Camilla had fought her way into the royal fold, but now that seat at the table felt increasingly fragile, and no number of photo ops could change that. In the face of silence, the public made noise. As the palace stumbled, the people responded with loyalty, hashtags, and a pointed reminder of who they trusted. When a monarchy is judged by character, not just crowns, the audience becomes the jury. The public chooses its royals. The fallout wasn't just felt in headlines. It rippled through the public in one of the sharpest shifts in royal sentiment since Diana's funeral. Polls released in the second week of the scandal revealed a seismic realignment. Princess Anne's favorability hit 84%, the highest in her career. Catherine and William followed close behind at 79% and 82% respectively. In contrast, Camilla dipped to 38%, and Laura, previously polling in the neutral range, plummeted to single digits. Social media solidified the verdict. #RealRoyals trended for 3 days straight. #NotYourQueen was reposted more than 250,000 times across Instagram and X, formerly Twitter. Fan art depicted Anne as a knight, Catherine as a chess queen, and William as a lion holding the royal standard. The symbolism was clear. This was the monarchy the people respected. Not inherited, but earned. Diana's name resurfaced in commentary threads and news stories. Old clips of her criticizing the institution's rigidity were reshared with renewed meaning. One post captioned, "Diana tried to warn us," garnered 3.1 million views. The public's emotional muscle memory, betrayal, loss, and silent endurance reawakened, and it didn't side with Camilla. Meanwhile, William's decision to distance himself from Clarence House was interpreted not as coldness, but clarity. The public read it as a defense of values over bloodlines. And Catherine's silent show of solidarity with Anne wasn't just applauded, it was immortalized. An artist's illustration of their meeting at Gatcombe went viral within 48 hours. This wasn't just outrage, it was an endorsement. The British public had chosen its moral monarchy, and it wasn't Charles and Camilla. A shift in royal power has begun. By the time the dust began to settle, a quiet but irreversible shift had occurred. Laura Lopes was no longer seen at public events. Her name was scrubbed from 3 major royal invitations, and a scheduled magazine profile was postponed indefinitely. No apology ever came, just silence, and a locked gate at Ray Mill House. Inside the palace, Clarence House aides were reassigned. Several resigned. Charles, increasingly fatigued by the damage control circus, approved a restructuring of engagement planning that would hand more operational control to Kensington Palace. One insider said, "It's not a demotion for Camilla, but it is a decentralization." Princess Anne's role deepened. She became the quiet center of royal scheduling, often appearing alongside Catherine at engagements once reserved for Camilla. The two women weren't just symbols of stability, they became strategy. Together with William, they formed the Wales-Anne alliance that now unofficially steered the public face of the monarchy. This wasn't just a scandal fallout, it was a soft power transfer. Integrity had taken precedence over inheritance, merit over marriage. Charles remained king in title, but the institution was speaking through other voices now. William's stand had proven more than personal. It was structural, a signal, a reordering of who holds the public trust. And as the monarchy tiptoed into its next chapter, one truth stood unchallenged. The crown survives not because of lineage, but because of those who carry it with purpose. And just like that, the palace facade cracked. Not with scandalous affairs or political blunders, but with one man, one confrontation, and one unshakable sense of loyalty. Prince William had spent years walking the tightrope of diplomacy. But when it came to Princess Anne, the firm's most loyal workhorse, he didn't hesitate. He challenged Camilla not out of rebellion, but out of principle. Because some things, even in royal life, are non-negotiable. Respect, honor, family. Camilla's alleged behavior wasn't just rude, it was corrosive. Reports of dismissive comments, power plays, and subtle undermining toward Anne had been whispered for months. But when the bullying crossed a line and word reached William, he didn't ask questions, he took a stand. Not in front of cameras, not through aides, in person, direct, regal, and unforgiving. His confrontation sent shockwaves through Clarence House. Staff described the atmosphere as tense enough to stop clocks. Aides were moved, guest lists rewritten, and suddenly, the power dynamics of the palace had shifted, not with press releases, but with silence. Camilla pulled back. Anne surged forward. And William? He emerged as more than heir. He emerged as the moral compass of the crown. Meanwhile, the public responded in kind. Hashtags like #StandWithAnne and #William. The worthy dominated timelines. Polls swung hard in William's favor, and Camilla's image? Damaged. Not irreparably, but enough to remind the world that public forgiveness has limits. This wasn't just a family squabble. It was the monarchy reevaluating itself in real time. Because when your royal title starts costing you the people's trust, the throne stops being a symbol and starts being a spotlight. So what happens next? Quiet exile? Public reconciliation? Or another silent coup within the Velvet Halls? One thing's clear. William's loyalty isn't performative. It's personal. And when he stands up, the rest of the palace listens. Because this isn't the monarchy of yesterday anymore. It's the monarchy of whoever dares to earn it.